Are you serious? Are you serious, folks? Welcome to a powerful broadcast right now. We have Bob Kudla with us from TradeGeniusAcademy.com. And wow, it's going to be a powerful program. There's some shifting going on out there in a lot of directions, and Bob Kudla's here to help answer the questions. And let me just say, Bob, welcome to the broadcast.
Oh, hey, Paul. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I mean, maybe we live in interesting times. Since you and I last talked, the market went up 10%, and the all clear signs have been coming out, and everything's going well with the economy. And then starting ironically today, as we start talking, we're starting to see some of the wheels coming off the apple cart, and but actually, it's going to be really interesting. So if you allow me to monologue for a second, I'll kind of maybe set the stage what I think's happening here. The problems with the economy in the world is China, okay? Forget the trade talks for a second. That's just a symptom. China's in big trouble. Their growth is collapsing. And people don't realize, they're a contained society. That means their capital has a hard time leaving the country. And so they have basically this boiler room going where they're just shoving more and more and more debt into their economy to get growth at any cost, and it's starting to not work anymore. It's called pushing on a string. And so the first place you see that, you see it in Germany, because Germany sells to them all of the factory equipment, and the Japanese sell to them all the factory equipment, all the automation equipment, all the machine tools that allow their factories to hum. And then, Trump correctly, as we talked about this many times, he's doing the correct policy of basically telling the Chinese, you're not going to dump into our economy anymore. We're going to have a more balanced environment, or I'll tariff you until we do. And the Chinese are stuck. And so what's happening now is these countries are called mercantilist countries. That means they're export dependent. China, Germany, Japan, Korea, all those countries are going to be in big, big trouble. They have 40 to 50% and higher of their GDP is directed towards exports, where in the United States we're like at 17%. And so what happens is that all these economies are going to start to sink. And so today's sell-off, people attributed it to China and Trump, but that's not true. That's another smokescreen. It's actually Germany sold off this morning first, and Germany sold off because their economic numbers came in poor again, and Italy is about ready to go bankrupt, and then all the issues with England. So that's the daisy chain that's going around. And that's why I always tell people this next go-around is going to be bad news for the world economy, but just bad news for our stock market. Because what Trump is doing is he's taking the growth out of the world and he's bringing it back to the U.S. If you notice, our employment rates are the highest percentage they have been in 40 years as a percent of population, which is huge because we have a big population now retiring. And number two is we have the lowest unemployment rate across any category you wish to measure. That means the jobs are being pushed back into the economy, and they're the jobs that we want. The steel sector's back, manufacturing's coming back, and you can see worldwide trade is collapsing, which is another good news for us. Since we have such high debts and deficits, we don't have to rely on third party countries to finance our debt and have them have a sword over our head. So it's all good guys for us. It doesn't mean it's going to be we're not in trouble or we're going to go into a recession. It's just that we're not going to suffer the economic consequences that they're going to have elsewhere in the world, Paul.
All right. Well, Bob, it's amazing the analyzation you just did of the market. And it's very true that the president's policies, okay, the tariffs that he's put on China, the tax reform he did, the cutting of taxes, the getting away of the red tape, the bureaucracy, freeing up markets to where companies can invest and can move forward quickly and not have to drag their feet and wait on the federal government. The stock market is down around 300 points today right now due to this trade war insecurity, I guess. The market's pretty emotional, I guess is what I'll say. But as you said, the U.S. economy is as strong as it's been in 50 years. It is roaring. And I'm just going to ask you a quick question here. I want to talk about Europe in a little bit because what a roller coaster ride they got over there. But I guess my question is to you, the State of the Union address, do you feel that, I felt like it was a great address on a lot of areas, but I'm going to ask you from an economic standpoint, did the President of the United States, did he ease concerns of the American industries? Did he give Americans hope that jobs would be coming more or they should be concerned? What did he do to consumer confidence?
I mean, the State of the Union was really more, he was really speaking in grander terms. And in fact, they said it was his best speech of the three he's done. But he didn't really put out any particular policies because he's already put them into motion, Paul. And, you know, I mean, look, the oil and gas industry, we went from biggest importer to now the biggest exporter with the biggest surpluses and reserves in the world. We're bigger than Russia and Saudi Arabia combined. So we control the oil markets. The food markets, we're still the biggest producers of food in the world. You know, he talked manufacturing coming back. That's where the big money is going to come in terms of people being able to pay bills. Because you notice he also was talking about wages have gone up. And I think that's why he was chastising the Federal Reserve and Powell, saying, dude, we got to let a little bit of this wage inflation come back into the market because this is how they pay for government. They get jobs, they have payroll taxes, they have their income taxes, and they need money to pay for the bills. And inflation is non-existent. And so, yeah, I think look at the results of the poll. I mean, they were towering. I mean, even people who don't agree with Trump grudgingly gave him credit for a really good speech. And security. I think Trump, if his overarching theme for our country is I'm gonna protect you. And I think that's what I always get when I listen to Trump. I'm here to protect you.
Yes, I think exactly. You're exactly right. I'm here to protect you, and I'm here to create an environment of prosperity for you. And anything that's going to hinder that or harm that, I'm going to beat that back down. When he went to the European Union, when he went to NATO and said, you guys aren't paying your fair share, that was so bold. That was so needful. And he did it. He got $100 billion now of back delinquent payments submitted. He wasn't afraid to tear up the TPP. He wasn't afraid to say NAFTA is no good, bad deal, bad deal. China or Canada, we love you, but you need to come back to the table. So, I mean, nobody did the things he's doing, and I think that's the reason he's creating this culture of prosperity and opportunity for the entrepreneur spirit, and I think it's great. It's great for America. But is Trump's successes establishing the strong America, Bob, is that what's weakening the European Union, or are they falling on their own face with their taxation and migration and that type of thing?
Oh, they're dead men walking, Paul. I mean, it's a shame. You better take your European vacation soon because we're not going to recognize that place in 10 years. I mean, what a mess. I mean, it's just amazing to me that they allowed a small cadre of people to literally destroy a land where 350, 400 million people live for reasons unknown to me. I don't even know what they even think their end game was. They have such fear, I guess, of intranational wars that they've suffered over the centuries that they figured they had a totally dilute nationalism over there to the point where they're getting the reaction that they hope to avoid. And at the same time as this European monetary union, it just, it allowed people to cheat. And so now you created this north-south divide, the Protestant Latin divide, in terms of people who save and people who spend, and it's unworkable. It's just like if you let Illinois tap into the unlimited debt markets, right? Those people would spend us into oblivion. Well, that's Italy and that's Spain and that's Greece, and now they caused a situation where it's just untenable, and so it's gone. So that's why I always tell people when push comes to shove, the money around the world is going to come flying into the United States. There's nowhere else for it to go, Paul.
Right.
The Chinese right now, the wealthy Chinese are blocked in so many ways. You know what they're doing now? They're taking their yuan and they're buying jewelry like it's going out of style. And then they take trips across to wherever, that they're allowed to take, and they leave their jewelry in the other countries. People are desperate to get out of these crazy economic systems that were created, and ours is still simply the best in the world. And what they say is we're going to be the one-eyed monster in the land of the blind, or the one-eyed king in the land of the blind when this thing all tumbles down. So, we're going to be in the best of the bad neighborhood.
So basically, folks, invest in America, hang with America, stay with America, because America's got a strong economy based on a strong government. And that's why we can't let this get out of control in the swamp. And we don't need all the hand-wringing. We don't need all the grandstanding. We don't need all the fist fights and arguments that go on there. We really got to work together. And I think that was the president's theme as well, was reaching constantly across the aisle in that State of the Union address. And I think the American people responded because they really liked what they heard. They're tired of all the bickering. Let's talk about the fact that you've had tremendous success. Folks, this is Bob Kudla, TradeGenius.com, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You can call him at any time, 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. Bob Kudla. Call him at TradeGeniusAcademy.com. And Bob, you've been having some tremendous success. It doesn't matter if the market's going up or down. You guys just keep identifying the right stocks for people to buy, and you're teaching people how to trade. Tell us a little bit and show us the couple of graphs you have of what's been going on.
Yeah, so, when we talked way back in December, we were telling people, hey, look, stock market's gonna take a tumble. You need to get out, or you could buy a stock called SH, which is short the broad market. But we are pounding the table on gold and silver miners. And between now and just last week when we started to sell them back, is that we had tremendous success with that. I mean, we had trades ranging from 3% to 30% gains. And because people are starting to recognize the fact that the Federal Reserve cannot keep pace with the debt that's being created without destroying the economy, and they would have to blink. And they blinked. And now they've stopped. And so, we took advantage of that, and we could see it in our program. So we have an algorithm that basically looks at buying pressure and selling pressure. It looks at levels. The stock market works like this on a sine wave, and it's either ranging up, or it's ranging down, or it's ranging flat. And so our algorithm's tuned in to look for those opportunities where money's coming in at the bottom of those ranges, and then it becomes easy for you to make profit, or easier to make profit. And that's what we do, day in and day out, Paul. And results speak for themselves. Our track record's up on our site every day. It's updated probably 4 times a week, and we've been averaging, now it's almost 150% annualized on the trades that we're in. And we're not trading anything special. We're just trading the regular stuff on the stock market,
Bob,
making 2 to 3 to 5% on average.
Bob, we're putting the chart back up on the screen right now, the 1937 chart. Can you explain a little bit about what we're looking at here?
Yeah, sure. That's the analog that I've been referring to, which has given me pause with the stock market. This is the last time the Fed did what it did, what it's doing today, is they raised rates too early and too fast, and it caused some indigestion the stock market, and then they stopped, but it was too late. And so you have a sell-off, you have a push up higher, and then you have a really big sell-off. And we're right at that cusp again, where we're going to test those lows of December, Paul.
So when I'm looking at that chart, the red lines is right now, that's 2018, and the black lines was the exact same period of when the Feds made their adjustment in 1937. It's almost identical.
Yeah, that's what's scaring a lot of people, and rightfully so, because they've caused too much disruption. And, look, almost 20% of the S&P 500, Paul, can't cover their interest charges. And then this last earnings reports, they're all been weaker than they advertised. And so people will start adjusting the value of these companies and start marking these companies down in price. And, we have a date for probably a 25% correction overall from the top to where I think we'll bottom. And, why sit through that in agony? Just, pull some chips off the table or do what our people are doing. We're just trading through it and holding a lot of cash and making money through the process.
Folks, Bob Kudla is with us from TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's www.TradeGeniusAcademy.com. And Bob is an expert in financial consulting. Now, he's got some tremendous February specials that he's coming out with, a Valentine special. Tell us a little bit about this, Bob.
Yeah, so Paul, as always, I like to do for your listeners is to bundle up some really good prices for our services. So we put together a series of bundles for you guys, and till the 10th of February, you can get our trade signals or education or trade the cryptocurrency markets or trade gold and silver or just trade stocks in general. And we will provide really good discounts on those services. In fact, some cases it's 60 to 65% off of what we normally would charge. But, you need to take advantage of it by the 10th of February. And the good stuff. You get into our trade rooms. We have chat rooms running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're very engaged in those rooms. We really help people get up to speed on trading and how to trade and teach them how to fish and, get them confident and so that they can see the same things we're seeing and start making money nearly every day in the market. So that's what we're doing, and we always put together something nice for your listeners, Paul.
We really appreciate that, Bob. Folks, Bob, and what I love about Bob is he's a straight shooter, tells you exactly what's going on, got a Christian company there, good people. And so, Bob, we're looking at this economy and the yellow vest protests, this thing going on in the European Union. There's no question, as you just mentioned earlier, Spain, Italy, Greece, those guys are broke, busted, and disgusted. But look at the rest of the EU. They are overtaxed. Unbelievable. The taxation, the migration has brought this unbelievable frustration, and it's tearing the EU apart. And I'm wondering, and the Brexit thing, I mean, it looks like they're going to have to do a hard Brexit. There's even a contingency plan to fly the Queen of England out of England if things get too crazy. I mean, what is going on in the European Union?
Well, you want the economic answer or the biblical one, Paul?
Well, maybe both. Give us both.
Well, it was a union of convenience, and it was never really a union that the people really effectively embraced. And then what happened was it just became more and more totalitarian. And so you have this group of unelected bureaucrats that sit in Brussels, Belgium, that just create these inane laws that you cannot, just like the Incredibles movie, you can't penetrate the bureaucracy. And it deadens people. And so you can't have a vibrant economy if it takes you 2 years to start a business and every time you make a profit, the government takes so much of it as you can't climb through it. And there's no capital markets. Everything's bank debt related. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on. And, it's designed for social stability versus economic growth. The problem is that when you're a debt fiat-based economy, stability means slow death. And that's what's happening to Europe. And it got to the point where they couldn't hide it anymore, Paul. And so that's why it's all warping out of control. And those people in Paris, I mean, that was spontaneous. That new tax he was putting in place basically almost made it impossible for people to even get to work.
Right.
They just did not have another penny to give. And people just blew their stack. And it was all on this green energy thing that people know is just totally bogus. And you know, France of all places, which is like 97% of their electricity comes from nuclear, you know, they could create an electric economy without any of this garbage. But they chose to just shove it down people's throats, and it just threw up all over it. And that's what's happening in France. And you know, I'm glad for it. I mean, there few people have the audacity to protest. You know, everybody else is kind of sitting on their thumbs here, and these guys have taken it. And you know what? And they're not quitting. So I think it's going to have legs. And if you think about Europe, you know, Eastern Europe's already out of the game. They already told the EU to pound sand. We're not taking any of your migrants. We're not taking your tax policies. We'll cut our own deals with Trump and the Americans for our military, and then England on the other side. And this whole thing around all this dire stuff. I'm going to be really clear with you. Britain's going to leave the economic union, and Germany is going to cave because the Germans export so much to England that this whole thing's a bluff. And if England says no problem, we're gone, Germany will cut a bilateral deal with England in a week. And so that's what I hate so much about these people, and our media does not choose these harder questions. They just kind of go with the flow of whatever these statists want, and because they're all in it together, because they get a seat at the table. You know, they get to sit in on the in meetings and instead of asking the hard questions. And like, you know, Germany and Europe is in a very weak position against England, but they make it sound like England's in a very weak position with Europe. England could cut a deal. Look, they have enough nations that they've been connected to for centuries. They could cut their own economic union with themselves. As long as they're nice to America, they're good.
You know, you're exactly right. And as soon as the English get out of this EU, I would say right now they're striking all these other deals with other countries. And the real problem is going to be in Germany and France. I think those two countries are going to take a major suffrage, really going to suffer in their economy. And I guess because when Britain leaves and they're doing deals with everyone else, exactly right what you said, Germany will come back to the table begging for a way to make something work. They've been bluffing the British way too long. Here's another question for you, and that is, what happens to the European dollar, the EU dollar, and the euro? And does Bitcoin all of a sudden become a currency player in the European Union area?
Well, yeah, you know, Bitcoin has kind of gotten quiet, but it hasn't gone away by any stretch of the imagination. And yeah, it's a way for people to convert out of rapidly becoming worthless currencies and out of the country in a New York minute. And so Bitcoin's just sitting there. Digital currencies are coming in. You know, we're going to do some things in the United States that are going to support it. But yeah, the euro is going the way of the Saddam Hussein dollar. I mean, people are not going to take it, and so the whole thing's just going to collapse in on itself. And we're going to go back to either regional currencies, or we're going to go back to like a mark and a franc and a pound again and a lira. But the euro is gone. There's no way they can save it. And so digital currencies that don't have a counterparty risk like Bitcoin is going to do quite well. And look at the Venezuela. People have said, you know, a lot of times, when's Bitcoin go to 100,000? I said, well, if you lived in Venezuela, it did. If you lived in Turkey, it did.
Right.
You know, if you lived in Argentina, it did. And I think that's what, you know, people just don't have the mindset because they're not living in a country yet where their currencies are collapsing. But guess what? When the euro goes, that's when you're going to see Bitcoin go into the six digits. And because people are going to try to get out of there, and they're going to try to get dollars, and they're going to try to get crypto as fast as they possibly can get out of their stuff. And we're not talking years here, Paul. I mean, we're talking probably, I would say, 2 years, 3 at the most. I mean, we're at end state here. They can't stop it anymore.
Yeah, I really agree with you 1,000%. I've been watching this whole thing unravel, the fracturing of the European Union. And I can see you got several nations that are busted, completely broken. And you got Germany and France trying to build their own little coalition. And then you got Poland and Hungary, Sweden and Slovakia, and these guys saying, we don't want any part of this. And the British saying, we can handle our own business. We'll just team up with the Americans and move on. And you've nailed it. The EU, the euro will die, and so something has to fill that void. And my first opinion was, okay, it'll be Bitcoin, some kind of cryptocurrency, but there'll also be other currencies that will, paper fiat money. I guess another question is, can we talk about Venezuela for a moment? And is there anything going on down there in Venezuela that makes a difference in the stocks that you recommend to people here in America, in the trading that goes on? Because things have got to be, the oil and everything, it's crazy what's going on down there in Venezuela.
Yeah, nothing particular on the stock side other than there's now Venezuela is getting squeezed on three sides now, besides the mistakes they made personally, is that, the United States is pressuring them from the north, Colombia is pressuring them from the west, and Brazil is pressuring them from the south. All these three countries are what I would call center-right in their political leanings, and they're going to go in there and they're gonna get Maduro out of power. And people don't realize that Maduro invited in some pretty bad actors. He invited the Chinese in, he invited the Russians in to handle their oil industry, and there's probably some players from Iran and Hezbollah in there as well. So, the good news is that, and this is my personal speculation, I think the world's going to be breaking into these trading blocks. And I think, with Brazil going to the right and pushing the Chinese back a little bit, and with America going right with Trump, is that we're setting the stage for what I would call more central or center-right hemisphere, where, the Western hemisphere is self-contained 100%. And it would be a good thing if we can then decouple and let Europe and Asia, the messes that they've created for themselves, kind of deal with them. And because, with Brazil and the United States, that we have very strong negotiations now with China over food, because they need one of us or the other one of us to be able to feed their citizens. And they know it, and they probably freaked out when Brazil went right. And so I watch those things from a different perspective, Paul, and I think what that does is it makes our dollar stronger. And when our dollar is stronger, then good things happen in our economy, and they're going to be able to handle a little bit more deficit spending, to be able to flood our economy with liquidity. And so that's what I'm watching, but nothing specific stock related for Venezuela in and of itself, other than those poor people. And hopefully we get socialism out of there. And in our country, these crazy people trying to one up themselves, I think they scared a lot of people. And some adults in the Democratic Party now are like saying, whoa, do you permanently not want to be in power, with this crazy talk that you have? And, Trump's just sitting back and letting them, hang themselves on this. But socialism is not coming to this country anytime soon, because it's so easy for people to see what it did in Venezuela.
Yeah, actually, Venezuela was such a perfect example of why you don't want to ever go to socialism. That was the richest country in South America, and then Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro get involved, and then within 20 years, they're completely destroyed. And it'll take another 10 to 15 years. If this Juan Guaido gets in, he'll get in. Because, you know, look at Maduro. He's sending plane loads of gold to Russia, and he's trying to sell it off to the Dubai, and now he can't even get the gold out of there because finally some of his guys stopped it. And I've been saying, you know, he owes billions to the Russians and billions to the Chinese. He's running out of real estate here, and he better take the deal that they're offering him to go into exile, or it's another Mussolini situation, okay? It's going to get real ugly fast. Do you see Guaido being able to lock arms with the Americans and the Brazilians and the Colombians even and start to rebuild a democracy, or maybe 10, 15 years?
You know, that's what he says. You know, look, Venezuela has a history of economic, you know, capitalism. You know, they were always a little left because most of those Latin American countries always kind of drift that way, but they absolutely have the resources to run an economy that could be prosperous. So if we all play it right in helping them, then yeah, if we go in there and we just prop up another dictator, then no. But I mean, that's a beautiful country that they let be destroyed, you know. And it's a sad thing, but tons of oil, tons of gold, tons of diamonds, tons of metals. You know, they can feed themselves. I mean, beautiful farm country in Venezuela, beautiful fishing in Venezuela, beautiful beaches. You know, I mean, they have the whole thing packaged. You know, and you just got to get the, you got to get the far right, you know, the oligarchs out. You got to get the far left, you know, communist totalitarians like Maduro out, and let the Venezuelan people start self-governing.
Folks, it's so amazing. Bob, this is so perfect. Venezuela, like you said, beautiful farmland, gorgeous fishing, tremendous beaches for tourism even. And then, oh, by the way, gold mines like you wouldn't believe, diamond mines, unbelievable, and tons of oil. This is a country that should be flourishing. But you see, you can take people and put them anywhere. If they don't govern themselves with fairness, if they don't put a structure together to where the people govern, you throw a dictator in anywhere and he'll drive it into the ground. And we've seen this time and time again. So whenever I'm sitting here watching 100 people at the State of the Union sit there and not applaud the most prosperous country in the world and just sit on their hands, I say to myself, we never in a million years want those folks running the ship, okay? We don't want them engineering the train, that's for sure. They'll wreck it. Bob, Valentine's special you got. One more time, let them know if they go to your website, www.tradegeniusacademy.com.
Yeah, tradegeniusacademy.com or tradelikeagenius.com. Come trade with us, and let us help you make money. Let us help you guide you through these next couple years. And, our algorithm doesn't get swayed by the propaganda. It sees what they're doing, and we just follow along, and we go along for the ride and make money. So come join us. You have till the 10th, midnight, and we put together really good packages, really good prices, so that you can make good return on your investment with us. And thank you, Paul, for letting me on.
Thank you for coming on, being with us. We always get great insight when you come on, Bob. Really, really good. Again, folks, Bob Kudla from TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Use that promo code Valentine. Get those specials he has through the 10th of February. Or pick up the phone and call him at 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. And Bob, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks you so much. God bless you and your family. We'll see you next time.